Hey everybody, so now it's the second video. Watch the other one first where we talked about general themes and ideas about the president in our Constitution. So I'm going to go through a little bit what the Constitution does say about the executive branch and the president. And again, we're in Article 2 of the Constitution here. So one thing to know is that the Constitution doesn't have any term limit for presidents. At the Constitutional Convention, they debated it and decided not to put it in the Constitution. George Washington ran for 2 terms and served 2 terms and didn't try to run for a 3rd term. And even though it wasn't written down in the Constitution, this became an important part of the presidency, that you would only run for 2 terms so that we don't end up with a king who just keeps power forever. So it stayed like that until Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR. No president tried to run for 3 terms until FDR, but he was elected to a 3rd term in 1940, and he was elected to a 4th term in 1944. And he passed away in office in 1945, so you don't know if he would have run for a 5th term. But so what happened is, after this happened, Congress proposed the 22nd Amendment, which was ratified in 1951, and the 22nd Amendment says you can only serve 2 terms. In 1984, Ronald Reagan was a very popular president, and especially after his big landslide re-election in 1984, people talked about repealing the 22nd Amendment, but it didn't end up happening. But just so you know, in the 1980s, there was a discussion of if we should let people have more terms. So then the next really important thing to know is the Electoral College. As a lot of people probably know now, but really didn't know before the 2000s, is that we don't elect the president directly. Now, this is a result, and we've already read this in the Federalist Papers, that the framers of the Constitution were afraid of democracy, thought that people would make bad choices, thought that if the people chose the president, they would start choosing presidents who let everybody own their own land and redistributed wealth to the poor. So they set up this system of the Electoral College. And if you go back and read that Metcalfe and Delbert article on the dark side of the Constitution that we studied at the beginning of the class, it leads you through the parts of Federalist Papers where this distrust of democracy is explained in the framers' own words. So I urge everyone to go back and reread that article, especially if you didn't get a chance to read it now, because it's got a lot of really great primary sources in it. So you can read this from the framers themselves. So what we end up having is this Electoral College. And the way the Electoral College works is that you get votes assigned based upon a visitor coming by. So the way that the Electoral College works is that you get a certain number of votes based on your population. So it's tied to senators and representatives that you have in the House, and they vote for the president. And so people do vote within a state, but there's nothing that says that the Electoral College has to do what the voters said. And it was actually expected when the Constitution was adopted that the Electoral College, which are people appointed, they're not elected. So Electoral College is people who are appointed in representative numbers to a population of a state, and senators. So it's not totally about population, but population is part of it. And these people are appointed, they're not elected, so no one voted for their Electoral College representatives. And the Electoral College members were not expected to follow what the people wanted. This was about shielding the presidency from democracy. And so they were free to do whatever they want. And if you look in the Constitution and anything that we have primary sources about the Electoral College, they do what they want. But what happened is that starting in about 1804, so just really like 20 years after the Constitution, we ended up having a 2-party system. And it really became expected that the electors in the Electoral College would follow what the public vote said. And so we haven't really had an issue come up very often where the Electoral College and the popular vote were different, okay? We've only had it 4 times. 1876 and 1888 were both times where the candidates the ones who got more votes in the popular election got fewer in the Electoral College and ended up being president even though they lost the popular vote. And then in 2000, Al Gore won the popular vote, while George Bush won the Electoral College. And then, most recently, as we all know, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, while Donald Trump won the Electoral College. So, especially since this only happened twice in the 1800s, but now we've had it happen twice in the 2000s, the Electoral College is a renewed source of debate. You could put in the comments below what you think about it, but we do currently still have the Electoral College, and so the president isn't tied directly to who votes for them in terms of number of people. So we don't have a direct vote for the president of the United States. Then one other thing to know about the vice president is that originally the vice president is the second runner-up. So for example, if Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were in an election and Donald Trump came first and Hillary Clinton came second, Donald Trump would be president and Hillary Clinton would be vice president. Very early on, there were problems where you have people from different parties be vice president who frustrate everything the president's trying to do. So the 12th Amendment says that it's independent and that the vice president is elected separately. So there's a ticket for president, a ticket for vice president. That's what we still have today.